ago, I was the Director of Global Marketing and Market Development for one of the 25 fastest growing technology companies in the United States, and I hated it. I'd fallen out of love with my job, and this was confirmed by a complete stranger whose job it was to deliver the results of some mandatory personality tests I was taking for my MBA. She sat across from me, looked me right in the eye and said very pleasantly, "You hate your job. You passionately believe you should be changing the world, and instead you're doing this." Now, I'm not a crying person, but I cried all the way home because she was absolutely right, but mortgage, mortgage, mortgage. So carry on taking the paycheck, thinking there's plenty of time to save the world. A few weeks later, I was sitting in this very room. I was sitting right about there, actually, where the woman in the black and white top is sitting. I was sitting listening to people give inspiring talks about how, in their own way, they were being brave and changing the world. And I knew. I didn't want to passively watch them. I wanted to be them. That was the day I decided to change my life. That was the day that mortgage, mortgage, mortgage became screw it. I'm going to change the world. So I quit and I formed my own company, Full and Frank, so I could go out and provide strategic advice and services to non-profits. So I could use my skills to help the people who were working to make the world a better place. The mission was fixed. And then another total stranger, an American named Dan Pallotta, spoke at TED 2013. And almost instantly, my vision became something more. I didn't just want to help people to do good. I wanted to play a role in fundamentally changing the way that Australians think about giving, about the role of charity in our country, and about what non-profits should look like here in Australia. Those of you who are here with me in person today, I hope you've seen the Dan Pallotta TED Talk, but if you haven't, go home and watch it. And for those of you who are watching this video online, you should pause my talk right now. Go and watch the Dan Pallotta TED Talk and then come back. It's okay, we'll wait. Dan's TED Talk resonated passionately with me because it reflected my own experiences from a decade earlier when I'd spent the year as the CEO of a non-profit student organisation before I headed to the for-profit sector. And it resonates with me on a daily basis now in my work as a strategic consultant to non-profit organisations. Dan's TED Talk asserts that the way we think about charity is dead wrong. And he challenged me to consider whether, without my knowledge, I was a part of the non-profit problem. The answer was confronting. The answer was yes, because I was feeding this overhead myth that Dan was talking about. So today I want to talk to you about unintended consequences, and I want to challenge you to ask yourself the very same question. If by perpetuating this overhead myth, am I a part of the non-profit problem? So I'm going to assume for the next 5 minutes that we are all good people. We donate to charity, maybe a little, maybe a lot, but we give what we can when we can because we want to make the world a better place. And there's no shortage of work to be going on with. 1 in 200 Australians are going to be homeless tonight. 27% of them are children. 1 in 3 Australian girls are going to be sexually abused before the age of 16. The new infection rates for HIV just jumped 10% in 12 months. That's the greatest leap in 20 years. 2014 is set to be the hottest year in recorded history. There are only 2 children's hospices currently operating in Australia, despite a population of over 23 million people. And there are 7,000 young Australians with high care needs living in old age nursing homes right now. So many of you may be shocked when I tell you that the way we think about non-profits, the way we choose which non-profits to donate to, the way we talk about non-profits, the way the media talks about non-profits, and the way the governments fund non-profits is inhibiting non-profits from tackling the massive, massive challenges confronting humanity. These are the very challenges that we want them to solve. The overhead myth is a notion. that the less an organisation spends on administration, the more effective and virtuous it is. And that is bullshit. Now, my husband strongly recommended that I shouldn't use the word bullshit in a TED talk, but when I challenged him to come up with an alternative word that still adequately conveyed the outrageous redundancy of this metric, even he was at a total loss. Ironically, when I chose to quit my job and become a strategic consultant to non-profit organisations, I actually turned myself into an overhead. In the for-profit world, I'd been regarded as an essential part of that organisation achieving its strategic mission. But the very next day, without varying the substance of what I did in any way, I had actually become the very thing that I used to personally regard as a negative when deciding where to send my charity dollars. We accept, without question, that for-profits are going to spend money on rent, on lights, on staff, as absolutely essential parts of them achieving their organisation's objectives. We understand they need to invest in accounting staff, the very people who are going to prepare the financial accountability documents that we all want. We understand they're going to need to invest in marketing to tell more people about their products and services and then get them to hand over their money. We understand that if they want to be innovative in order to tackle big challenges and embrace big opportunities, they need to invest in great staff. But the second we talk about non-profit organisations, we throw all of that real-world logic out the window and start applying metrics that are easy to create but absolutely meaningless. The overhead or administrative metric provides zero indication of whether an organisation is making gains towards their overall mission, whether that's ending homelessness, curing cancer, saving a reef, or building a children's hospice. So, despite my well-meaning intentions, I was feeding the overhead myth. Every time I used that metric to decide which charity to send my donation to. Every time I heard somebody complain about the salary being paid so a charity could access a best and brightest mind, and I didn't challenge it. Every time I read a media article talking about the percentage of revenue that a charity was spending on fundraising or advertising, as if that investment didn't dramatically increase the amount of donations they would then receive, and I didn't challenge it, I was feeding the overhead myth. And I was sending a message to non-profits. And I know I was sending this message because in true bite yourself on the arse cyclic fashion, the message that I was sending them as a donor is now rebounded back to me in what non-profits say to me every day. We know we'd be more effective if we hired qualified professionals or invested in the professional development of our staff, but that would be overhead. We know we'd be more effective if we had new computers and software that didn't break down every 5 minutes. But the board says we have to reduce our overheads. We know that a marketing campaign would increase the number of people who know about what we do and why it's important. It would increase the number of donors we have, which would increase our revenue and therefore give us more money to actually spend on the mission. But that would increase our overheads. The message that I was sending to non-profits, the message that many of us are still sending to non-profits, is be poor. You are more moral and more virtuous if you operate with a poverty mentality. We expect you to tackle the world's largest problems, but to do it with the cheapest available Band-Aid. We care just enough about changing the world to give you a donation. But if you dare think that you can think big, that you can invest that money strategically based on what we know works in the for-profit world, we will hurt you. We will chastise you in the media, criticise you on social media and at the water cooler. We'll stop our donations, cut your government funding and take away your ability to help the very people that you are set up to benefit. Maybe like me, you are completely unaware of the unintended consequences until it's put right in front of you. But now we know better. So I implore you, please stop sending this message to charities. Instead, send them the message that you want them to change the world. Actually write and tell them that you want to invest the money that you donated in making their operations more strategic, in creating new systems that will make them more efficient, and in investing in spreading the story of the importance of the mission far and wide so they can attract more donors. Tell them you'll be there to support them based on how successful they are in achieving their mission and not on some bullshit metric. Let me start. I'm a donor. In case of the 7,000 young Australians currently living in old age nursing homes, for example, let me tell you, I care about you getting them out. So take the money I've given you and invest it in whatever you will believe will make that happen. Because what I care about is the mission. And that is what we all should care about. Thank you.